Hello, good evening, welcome to UPfront. My name is Raymond Aqua. Tonight, Alfred Woyome, the embattled businessman, is our guest on this particular show. He'll be reacting to the Supreme Court decision ordering the Attorney General of the Republic of Ghana to sell off his properties to defray some cost of almost 47 million Ghana cedis. What is his reaction to this particular claim? We'll be hearing more from him and what the other lawyers think about the decision. As we are told, there's an African Human Rights Court decision expected tomorrow too. After the break, we'll start our conversation. You're welcome back. My name is Raymond Aqua. This is UPfront. It's a very exciting show today because Alfred Woyome, the businessman at the center of this particular controversy over the payment of some 51 million Ghana cedis dating back as far as 2011, 2012, 2013. Now the Supreme Court is finally putting the nail in his coffin by insisting the people of this republic can sell 3 main properties. 2 in 1, some at the Trazako place, one here near Kokomlemle, that's at car price, one huge building there, and also a certain quarry that belongs to him. All of this put together, we're looking at some 20 million Ghana cedis that the Supreme Court of this republic is asking the Attorney General to defray, to make sure that we can clear our debt with him. Some part of it which is supposed to be. Tonight he'll be telling me why he thinks this decision is wrong, he sees it as an error, and we'll be subjecting these thoughts to those of lawyers who are competent in this department. First and foremost, let me take you to the courts. This was the reaction of the very Deputy Attorney General who led the charge on behalf of the state in trying to retrieve the monies from the man Alfred Woyome. Listen to Godfrey Dame.
So the decisions of the court were quite clear that the claim by UT Bank and Anato Holdings Limited, that the claim by UT Bank and Anato Holdings Limited were all a sham. In respect to the claim by UT Bank, the court indicated that was actually a collusion, as the Attorney General alleged, was an effort to collude with the judgment debtor to avoid a satisfaction of the judgment debt. And that to me is very significant. To me, it holds a lot of significance for accountability and the rule of law, that indeed you cannot pillage or deprive the state of funds and then resort to all manner of tactics just to avoid a satisfaction of the judgment debt given against you. And so to me, it goes a long way for establishing and consolidating the rule of law, and also it's a shot to the arm for the fight against impunity and lack of accountability. So it has a lot of significance for accountability as far as I'm concerned. And we're very much satisfied by the ruling. And as we continued right from the beginning, the claims were collusion. And the court having so found that Woyome attempted to collude with a bank to prevent an execution of judgment against him. To me, it's really an act that the state can take him on in terms of criminal prosecution or whatever. Clearly, this is something that I will consider prosecuting him for crime. And as you remember, I indicated, well, in all the effort that were made by Woyome to avoid satisfaction judgment debt, that there's a day of reckoning will come. Until the day of reckoning, and to God be the glory.
In terms of figures, how significant is this towards this?
Well, I mean, significantly, well, the Trazako properties, as per the evaluation report that were done even last year, all had a value of about 1.2, 1.5 million dollars each, and the Kure residence where he lives also has similar value, and the quarry at Mafi also has even greater value. So now, even if you're looking at minimum 4.5 to $5 million, I think that should give us something in the region of about minimum of 20 million Ghana cedis, and we continue also to discover more assets from office. Indeed, from the document in it by UT Bank, 2 other properties were discovered. That's another property at Islegon. So all those properties will be proceeded against, and I'm sure we'll realize, we have about 30 million Ghana cedis by the time we're done with this execution, and that's not to take account of other properties that we continue to discover.
So what happens next after the court ruling?
So it brings to an end all his tactics or the attempt to evade the judgment debt, and all we have to do now is to proceed to auction the properties.
And that's the clear-cut statement there from the Deputy Attorney General Godfrey Dame, who led the charge in court today about what government really wants. All that's left is what he says there. They'll proceed to sell these properties and raise some 20 million out of the 47 million that's in dispute in this particular case. Now, he's also been speaking to another issue, and I mean Godfrey Dame. He's been speaking to the quandary as to whether or not Ghana, by this particular decision of the Supreme Court, might be in some way impeding the path of the African Human Rights Court, where Mr. Woyome has dragged the state to go and seek some justice. He responded to the matter too.
I expect it to go in our favor, but first and foremost, it's not a human rights claim. There is no human rights offense that has been violated, and also this decision was a constitutional matter. It is one in the sole preserve of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is the highest court of Ghana, and I do not think that any court whatsoever can give any ruling to override the Supreme Court of Ghana's decision. So I'm not bothered at all. Even if the Supreme Court, even if the African Court of Human Rights were to give any adverse ruling unreasonably, it's something that will not be enforceable in the courts of Ghana. And I say so because if our constitution is quite clear, the constitution is a primary law of Ghana, and that is what regulates the prosecution of the matter in Ghana, and it sets the Supreme Court as the highest court of Ghana. And it is so, especially in terms of constitutional matters. It was clearly a constitutional action, and it was a sole preserve of mandate to the Supreme Court of Ghana. The Supreme Court of Ghana has ruled today to them giving their mandate, allowing the execution. So I'm not bothered about what's going to happen in Tanzania tomorrow.
What State Ghana says is unperturbed. You heard the Deputy Attorney General there say that we are not going to be bothered by whichever decision they take there. We are expected to go in our favor anyway, because we don't think, as a state, as in the people of this Republic of Ghana, represented by the Attorney General, is not in any way worried about whichever way it goes. Indeed, Godfrey Dame believes that the African Human Rights Court cannot dictate to the people's court in this country and the Supreme Court as established under the very rules and laws of our country. Will that be the case? We'll be exploring that with the legal brace we know in this republic. But before then, we'll also be speaking to the African Human Rights Court and some of its representatives. But before that, that interview will be waiting for. Now, Mr. Alfred Woyome went out of his way to grant us an interview. Two conditions he insisted on. First, that we play to you the full interview. Two, that his face is not shown due to what he considers to be abuse of some of his pictures in this particular case. So we granted that too. So we have to listen to him, react only to the decision of the Supreme Court, and also proceed to tell us what his next steps are. And again, finally, even if he loses at the African Human Rights Court, what's going to be the way forward? What's also his reaction to the purported quest to undergo or take him through some form of criminal, again, form of criminal prosecution? What will be his final take on those issues? All of that, he sat with me and gave me some news on that.
The Supreme Court ruled some time ago that I should refund a certain amount of money to the state, which was legally paid me by a court of competent jurisdiction, arriving at a certain amount after negotiation and discussion with the government then. Okay. So it's a court-authorized payment. Now, the state at that time also stated that there was criminality and everything. And you also what happened to the end, having a 3-man panel of the Court of Appeal dismissing the charges and stating that I legitimately got the money. They stated it. It's in their ruling. And that state officials also act professionally. This is in a case where evidence were taken. Now, Honorable Martin Amido, within his right as a Ghanaian, and the right given to him by the Constitution, went to to the Supreme Court that certain contracts were not sent to Parliament by the government, and payments were made on that, and those contracts were foreign contracts. As per the Ghanaian Constitution, Article 1855.
Okay.
Supreme Court has got various decisions on that. One of those decisions were that you should have a company that is even controlled from outside Ghana. But this, I am an individual. When the ordinary bench, which means 9 judges of the Supreme Court, looked at the case, they said, no, I wasn't part of that contract. And that the High Court is the real forum for the discussion of those matters, adjudication of those matters. Mr. Amidou, not satisfied with that decision, went for a review. And when he went for the review court came back and said that I was linked to that Waterview contract. And I disagreed with that decision, which is within my right. And I stated clearly that the court has erred. Why do I say so? I went to court with an abrogated contract at 2005. The said contract that is illegal by the Supreme Court is 2006. I am not a director of Waterview. My name is not mentioned in that contract. I'm not part. In fact, it's so remote. My case was 2005. Waterview case was 2006. By linking my case, where evidence were taken, to Waterview's contract, by raising that in my statement of claim, I mentioned Waterview's 2006 contract. Because I mentioned it's a narrative. Then you have to take evidence to know what it is about. But Supreme Court don't take evidence on that because it was a constitutional matter. Then they linked me to it. Linking me to it. And then now said I should refund that money. I saw that as a businessman in this country and as a Ghanaian citizen, if there were other forum to look for justice, I should go. So I went for the ICC where Waterview contract was. And I asked them that the Supreme Court said I'm linked to this contract.
Is it not the International Court of Arbitration?
Yes, ICC. Yes. The Supreme Court said I'm linked to Waterview's contract. If I'm so much linked, me too, I've come for arbitration. The court ruled that I'm not linked to it. I'm not part of that contract. So they cannot adjudicate on it, which vindicates my position that I am not part of that contract. Now, by so doing, my rights as a person, as a businessman, have been trampled upon by the Supreme Court of Ghana. In our constitution, when such things happen, you have to go to the High Court, a special High Court. But then, we ourselves, under Article 40 of the Constitution, have recognized the jurisdiction of the African Court on Human Rights and People's Rights in Arusha, Tanzania, and ratified that by Parliament. Article 40 of the Constitution. So we shall, government shall respect all international treaties, and the Vienna Treaty and the Vienna Treaty. So we have submitted ourselves to the African Court. Then that was done in the Kufuor regime. Then in the Tamil regime, early Tamil regime, They also gave the Ghanaian the opportunity to be able to go, after you have gone throughout the Supreme Court and everything, you can still go there, which Parliament also approved and everything. So we are bound by that.
We are signatories to that.
Signatory and bound by it.
We have ratified that particular.
Ratified it. And even provided judges that have been presidents there, vice president there. The current Chief Justice was both vice president of that court and president of that court, and have ruled against other countries who have obeyed the court. Gentlemen, I went to that court, and government also represented itself. And during the course of it, the court gave a provisional order that everybody should leave the court processes until they finish the case. And whoever wins, you understand me, you continue from there. I did not disrespect and will not disrespect the Supreme Court of Ghana. My grandfather, my great-grandfather, my father all worked in the court. It is my responsibility, first as a Ghanaian and also as a child of a judicial court, to protect the image and integrity of the court. And this is what I'm doing. Now, the other issue is this. Because I'm law-abiding, I went ahead to pay portions of the amount.
Because there was a settlement agreement?
Yes, with the government.
But if you were right, why did you proceed with this?
Because by our constitution,
yes,
one cannot disobey the Supreme Court.
The directive had been given?
Yes. So I obeyed the Supreme Court. And to a point, what I had is what I gave out. And made an arrangement to continue paying.
Which you defaulted on the insistence?
Excuse me. The point is that if you, then I invoked Article 40 and went to the Arusha court. It means everything has to stop. And they, yes, and they issue a provisional measure. And since it's within the Constitution, I must respect it.
And you insist that the internet insisted that you couldn't have continued with the payments?
Yes, everything stopped until.
A case before the court of the Republic of Ghana could not proceed when the case was...
We are bound, yes, by it. That's the interim measure. It is ordered on the government of Ghana directly. And it is there, document. You journalists have to read. You read and educate the public.
Okay.
Now, for that reason, the payment was not stopped. The payment was paused.
Okay.
It's not stopped, but paused. So, in that direction, we are all waiting for it, but the government refused and started dawn raids in my houses and my own house with military men. Raids.
How many of those?
A lot of military men came to my house here. Joy FM, you covered it.
Yeah.
Yes, to say that they are coming to measure the dimensions of the house. They broke into Trasako, did the same thing there. Another place. They went there and did all that they can do without a court order. That they were taking valuations. I can hear them talking about some values.
20 million is currently.
Which is, where did they get that figure from?
Of course, but if they are broken into your house to do valuations,
what valuation? They come and measure the land and everything. Valuation is different. There must be an independent valuer. You are the judgment creditor. Did the court appoint an independent valuer?
Did the court appoint one?
No. I don't know of one. I don't know of one. So if now they want to talk about a value, they must go back to the court.
Okay.
For the court to appoint an independent valuer, and we all will have to agree on the value before they start throwing out figures.
Is it that you are disputing the amount to be more
excuse me,
than the actual amount?
Because there could be corruption there.
I don't get you.
You don't get me. I'm disputing that amount because it is not true what they are stating.
It's way higher or lower than the amount?
Far, far lower.
Far lower.
Look, 2 residential property. This very property here, and a quarry. $1 million is equal to about 5 million cedis.
Yeah.
The properties they are talking about, is it worth 1 million, 2 million, 3 million?
But you know that.
Exactly. So I'm not going to throw about figures. You understand me?
You can't dispute it if you have the actual figure.
Can you sit in your house for somebody to come and tell this house is worth, you are owing me, and I'm taking it, this is how much it's worth? I have explained to you that it is not done that way.
Okay.
The court must appoint, and the court must agree on figures of each one of the property you are talking about. Before you enter into another place that you are going to do, you must have also a court order to go there.
All of this is not happening?
Not happen.
You are not privy to any independent value?
It has never happened, and they have not entered the premises with any court orders.
I see.
Okay? That's one. I have been law-abiding and trying very much to respect the courts. So we've been attending the courts. Although every time, periodically, we give report to the African court as to what is happening here. Like today, we have given a report to them.
About this dwelling?
Exactly. We've sent it. Now, you know, as a Ghanaian, as the fourth estate, you have to defend the Constitution and the right of the Ghanaian. You are not supposed to be on one point, on one side. This is what journalism has become. And I want this play to the public. That's coming from me.
You suspect that?
Not that I suspect. I have practiced media before, sir.
I get you. I'm not disputing that.
So I am saying that.
You think that the media is on the side of government?
You are not doing enough work. You have not educated the people on this matter, like what I've just told you. Now, listen carefully.
And, of course, this is our opportunity.
Listen carefully. No. I have just, we are talking about this incident of today.
Yeah.
And this incident of today is by a sole judge.
Yeah.
So we have a right of review. Now, in between the issue, there was an incident. And we went for a review that the sole judge could not decide on these cases because it was an originating suit. Meaning, if you are doing an execution and you go and take some property, people get, say, I am interested. It means it's a, although you are executing a judgment that case is an originating suit. And by practice and the rules, it must start from the High Court. So that each individual who is peeved can have a right of appeal. So I went for a review saying that the sole judge, if he come with an advert situation, would have abused my right and the right of every Ghanaian because it would be a precedent for appeal. They gave a judgment, didn't give reasons, so we went back. Then I questioned myself, is it because it's Alfred Woyome? But I am in this fight not for Alfred Woyome. No. I'm in this fight for the Ghanaian and for the defense of the right of the Ghanaian and the Constitution. So now I say categorically that he has erred, and I'm seeking a review. I have 21 days in order to seek this review from 3 panel judges, because what the sole judge said was that there was collusion between me and UT Bank.
And the receivers of UT Bank?
Excuse me, listen. Receivers were not there. UT Bank had directors.
Yeah.
It had a board. It had loan officers. Did the Supreme Court call any of them? The receivers come and take a document and mistakenly tell the people that because the document had been transferred into the name of UT Bank has bought it. What is the proof of purchase? And we said no, it was part of the condition of the loan that those properties should be transferred into UT Bank's name, so that when it comes to execution or things like that, it would be easier for them
to take over.
To take over. That's what they are conditioned for giving those loans. And those loans too were occasioned by Yoko's action of illegally keeping the company's property in the port for more than 1 year. Quarry equipment and other things.
For the quarry?
For the quarry. Illegally. So, to save ourselves and other litigations and other things, we need to clear those goods and install them. That's what occasioned the loan in the first place. So, the bank needed enough guarantees. And we were able to give them enough guarantees. At that time, there is nothing called execution. The bank also stationed its officers in the quarry, and we're collecting the money. Now, the question here which arises out of this confusion is this. Is it right if a collateralized property can be taken from a bank, whether the bank is active or inactive, when the loan has not been repaid, to be given to a judgment creditor, be it government of Ghana? These are the issues. The documentations on the loans and everything were presented. So where is the collusion? We need to see the judgment itself and see where the collusion arises at.
And they're demanding that you pay some monies to on that particular claim.
Pay what money? I don't understand the question.
Is that not some charge to the alleged collusion in this case?
Charge? That's a cost. When you go to court, you ask for cost. Yes. You ask for cost, and they give you cost. So the matter is not finished. We just have started.
So what I get clear is that you...
And now, again, is that the African court gave notice to all of us that tomorrow, by 8 a.m. Ghana time, to be streamed live for the whole world to see, they will give a judgment on this matter.
Okay.
So we wait and see that one too.
I mean, generally, this is beyond the law. Generally, how do you feel about all of these incidents?
When you are fighting a rightful cause and you know your God is behind you, you do it. If nobody does it, everything that has been done now is a precedent in the Woyome case. And every Ghanaian can be used against the person. It is right that all Ghanaians understand these issues and make sure that we fight for justice.
There's a question, and if the courts at the African end rules in your favor, what would it mean?
What would it mean?
The current case that has been ruled here.
Okay, may I also ask you, I will ask you a rhetorical question. You don't need to answer me. When the issue between Ghana and Ivory Coast happened on the oil trend, what did Ivory Coast do when Ghana won?
They actually came for us to negotiate the way forward.
Negotiate or relinquished?
Yes, actually they went back. They said...
And relinquished?
Yeah.
Obeying international law?
Yes, they did.
Since Ghana became independent, show me one occasion where we have disobeyed an international law. Should it be the Woyome case, which should be a precedent to make us a rogue country? A country you signed to treaty by Vienna, saying you sign a treaty and you are bound by it, and your constitution also directs that you are bound by it, and you say you will not do it, and you Ghanaians, you will sit down. It's an overthrow of the constitution. It's an overthrow of the constitution. If I win and the Ghana government do that, then I can call it there is a coup d'etat of the constitution. That's what I'll call it. And I am boldly saying that. Because that is the fact of it. If you joke with it, every other person is joking with it, thinking that it is that this is how serious it is. The African court had reported Ghana in the AU. Ask them. They reported them. They reported them in the section in the AU.
Really? Now,
and they have not told you. So if you are dealing with this and a citizen of Ghana, see, the constitution is all about the Ghanaian. the right of the Ghanaian. That's all about the Constitution. So if the fundamental rights are being trampled upon, and the collective right of Ghana, by obeying international law, is going to be trampled upon, then let's see what it is. The issue here is that let's wait for the Arusha. If government win, I'm ready to sit with government and schedule this. This thing, I'm going to sell this, it's cost this, it's cost. I've never told the government Afro Woyome is not willing to pay.
Or cannot pay.
Or cannot pay. The issue is there. Okay, Indiana.
Of course, there's always a settlement plan. That's
exactly. Exactly. Then life begins. Then I know that I believe that I am doing a right thing by defending the right of myself, the Constitution, and the Ghanaian. And if it ends somewhere, we've all learned lessons. It's legal lessons. You understand me? We will sit down, and then I will bring a payment plan. And look, I have never vied for any political position. Neither do I want any political position in this country. And therefore, for you, you see, I've been quiet when we're doing all this politics and everything like that. I don't know why it should be so.
Because they say you are an NDC financier, and NDC financier, of course, is purely political.
It's purely political?
Yes.
Okay, let me tell you. Let me explain to you. In the United States,
yes,
everybody contributes.
Their structures are different. I mean,
their structures are different.
Corporate contributions.
Excuse me. Our constitution is based on the United States and that of UK.
We run a hybrid system. Yes.
Yes. You understand me? So is it wrong? Can it be said that I don't have MPP friends who have benefited from me? Can it be said so? The contract that we are talking about, whose regime was that?
John Kufuor's regime.
So then, I was the Vice Honorary Consul of Austria to Ghana. We were fine. It is not political. I am a social democrat. Fine. It doesn't make the MPP man an enemy to me. What we are talking about is a fundamental of our law, what holds us together as a country. Look, who started these persecutions? NDC. Yeah. So then, if you are their financier and they are persecuting you, and you two are joining, why are people finding convenience in somebody who decides to respect the law and be quiet and be law-abiding and make him look so bad?
Now,
can I steal a government money? Can I steal it?
I don't know, frankly.
But you people call me a thief. You said I have stolen money. I have taken government money. How do I take it? Am I a signatory to any account if it's not by a court order?
Now,
a lot of your journalists too, I was paying your fees. Many of you come to my house here. When the time comes, you sit on this TV and you say certain things. This is life.
I'm exclusive of that particular list.
No. I'm not talking about. I said some of.
Okay. Yes, I wanted to be.
No. I mean, say some.
Really?
Some of them too. I was hearing about them. You see, you don't talk like that to the people of Ghana. It is not an entertainment base.
Persecution, not prosecution.
Persecution.
You believe it's persecution?
What was the outcome of the criminal case?
Oh, okay, they ruled in your favor. It was dismissed, actually.
Did you go to Court of Appeal?
Yes, we went to appeal, right?
And okay, good. What happened to, excuse me, what happened to the sole commissioner's report?
I don't know about what happened.
You don't know that?
Yes.
I didn't attend that commission. I was not present. I was the number one on his page.
Yes.
I was the number one. He found me guilty and everything. The Court of Appeal threw it away. I hope you understand me. Again, you people have been misreporting to the Ghanaian public. The Auditor General found the payment illegal. No. Auditor General report. Go back and read it.
We can conclude on the basis. And my last question to you is what the Deputy AG said today. Says they are still considering criminal prosecutions against you. I don't know on what charge and the basis for this particular claim.
I don't know. But
when you hear things like that, what's your reaction?
I don't know. I don't know what crime I have caused. So maybe there's a crime in going to sue the government for what you legitimately think that they owe you, isn't it? Is that a crime?
I mean, that would not be criminal. That's actually civil.
So I don't know what he's talking about. So go and ask him.
Have they spoken to you about this?
I say, go and ask him. I don't know what you are talking about.
Are you willing to stand trial again?
Excuse me. I said, go and ask him what he means by that. That's all.
Thank you so much. Alfred Woyome there with some insight as to what's happened since the case started and how it has traveled through the various processes up to today. So I spoke to him not long ago about this particular matter, and of course he insisted that he didn't want to be videotaped with his face showing. That's why you saw excerpts of that without his face on that particular interview. Now let's explore what seems to be the only intractable matter in all of this. We're expecting the African Human Rights Court to rule tomorrow. Now, you heard earlier the Deputy AG make 2 points. 1, the government of the Republic of Ghana was going to win. 2, even if the government did not win, the government were not going to allow a court outside of the shores of the Republic of Ghana to dictate to the Supreme Court, and that the laws of this country are pretty clear on which court is more supreme or holds sway over the other when it comes to these matters. Let me explore this particular issue with parliamentarian and also a former minister, and then the ranking member on the Parliamentary Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee of Parliament. JoyNews joins me on the line now. Honorable, you're welcome to our front.
Thank you, Raymond. How are you?
I'm doing great. Now, going straight to the point, which one will be more supreme? Assuming the African Human Rights Court disagrees with the Ghanaian court, which one will be more important and which one will sway over the other?
Well, Raymond, it's a straightforward question and requires a straightforward answer. But before I give the answer, let me state that it is not within the domain of the executive government. Government defined exclusively entirely by Article 58 of the Constitution to indicate which court can ban the Supreme Court or not ban the Supreme Court. And also to agree with the Attorney General that this whole matter, and also Alfred Woyome, that this whole matter of the African Court of Human and People's Rights is a political question and not a legal question. The legal question has been answered in our Constitution in Article 129.2, which says that the Supreme Court is not bound to follow the decisions of any other court. Now, that particular provision talks about the stare decisis, that is the precedent. I mean, whether an African court, African Human and People's Rights Court, can bound the Supreme Court in this by its decisions, or the Supreme Court bound to follow its decisions when arriving at analysis. Judiciary or jurisprudentially speaking, the decisions of the African Human and People's Rights Court are only of persuasive character, because when you look at Article 126 of our Constitution, which talks about the composition of the judiciary, the Supreme Court is the highest court of the land and is not bound by any decision of any other court. Now, the Article 125 makes it abundantly clear that in this, our country, judicial power is vested in the judiciary and no other institution in this country. And so, within the remit of the country, I mean, the jurisdiction and territory of this country, it is only the Supreme Court which decisions are binding on government and no other court. But admittedly, there are political fallout that can come as a result of the executive not complying or not giving attention to decisions of an African People's and Human Rights Court.
Now, I want to get this point also clarified. The man believes that although what has happened under the NPP and the NDC government some time past is persecution and not prosecution. He believes that the final nail to this particular coffin is not necessarily what's happened at the Supreme Court. He's going for a review, and he believes that that should set the matter straight and clear. Is that something that you, as a lawyer, have thought of too?
Well, because all matters of prosecution, and when I say prosecution, I mean criminal prosecution, are matters that potentially affect the fundamental rights of persons. Accused persons are entitled to make value judgment on the nature of the trial. And so, in this particular case, I would not quarrel with Woyome when he says that this is persecution. But we have to have faith in the judicial system to establish the innocence or otherwise of persons who appear before them charged with criminal offenses. And insofar as the Supreme Court has not yet come to the conclusion that Mr. Alfred Woyome can walk away free from court for not having committed an offense, he can be entitled to his opinion, but we have to abide the decisions of the Supreme Court.
He also raised a matter that was of legal relevance to him, that the determination of how much his properties that are supposed to be sold or laid off is actually costing should be done by an independent valuer. He suspects that state officials that are putting up the figure of 20 million are deliberately undervaluing these properties with the intent to profit from the difference that will come henceforth from this particular valuation. How will such an issue be dealt with?
Yes, he is entirely within his right to state and claim that the values that have been attached in satisfaction of the judgment debt have been undervalued, and if they were valued by other valuers taking fair market conditions into consideration, the values would have attracted a higher premium on the market than is being determined by the valuers who are appointed by the court or the plaintiff. And so, if an accused person or a person whose properties have been attached in satisfaction of a judgment debt makes such a claim, he then is putting before the court that he knows of valuers who could value the property given it a market value that is higher than what has been presented to the court. In that particular case, it then bears the cost of a new valuation that is to be conducted on the property. And if the properties are so valued and the new values are higher, then they are put on the market based on those values. But that doesn't mean that when the values are so determined, which are higher than what has been valued by a court-appointed valuer, the property will be sold for those values. It means that the property can go for those values, but those values would be fair market values that the property can be sold.
I'm grateful for your time this evening, the Honorable Eunice Afuseni, on this particular issue. Well, many thanks to you for joining us. The Honorable Eunice Afuseni shared some thoughts on the theming and probably thorny issues on this particular matter. And you heard earlier on the Honorable Alfred Woyome, the businessman, whose properties now the Supreme Court has given the go-ahead for it to be sold to defray some 47 million Ghana cedi debt. Now, the question as to whether the African Human Rights Court has any jurisdiction competent or the lack thereof in this particular matter is also being addressed by a member of the African Human Rights Court. He says clearly that they expect Ghana to follow the ruling, contrary to what the Attorney General of the Republic of Ghana has been saying, that they will insist that Ghana should be able to follow whichever directive it will give after its ruling tomorrow. Listen to him.
Okay, I will respond to your question in a general way. Know about the case, because the case is pending before the court, so I cannot express myself on the case pending before the courts. But generally, what I can say is that it's an international court, and that the states have ratified the protocol, so they are abide by the decision that this court render when it comes to cases before it. So we cannot oppose the national court or the decision of a national court, because the decision of the African court when it comes to decisions regarding human rights violations is decisions superior to all the decision made by the court, because we express on violation on human rights. No not on other matters. So no, the decision of the court is a decision that the state should implement. That's it.
So that should be at the executive.
When the state, the party before the court is the state, not a national court, or perhaps it can involve, of course, a national court or other institution, but the state that has been sanctioned or recognized as having violated human rights is the state. Yeah.
And you expect all the nations, and in this case Ghana included, cases to respect and abide by whatever decision that will come from the court once they've agreed themselves to ratify it and obey by it?
No, I expect all the countries, all the state parties, all the countries before the court to respect the decision of the court. So I'm not talking on a specific country. I'm speaking on a general way, as I said. Yeah. Generally speaking, what a court can expect is that its decision be implemented, being respected. So, yeah.
And you heard a member of the African Human Rights Court there trying to get my colleague Joseph Akable to appreciate the issues when it comes to which decisions should reign supreme. In this case, all that he's saying is that the state party, being Ghana, at that particular court, should respect its decisions and implement it when it gives it tomorrow. Now, let me get some more legal appreciation of this matter. And I head to the phone lines once again and speak to law lecturer Zhao Pong. Welcome, sir, to our front.
Thank you very much. At the moment, I'm not eating.
Okay, certainly, but let me get this part clarified from you. There is a contention over whether or not what is in our constitution, that the Supreme Court of the Republic of Ghana is not subject to any other courts. We need to be set aside, or State Ghana will surely have to comply with the directive of the African Human Rights Court if the court decides to rule in favor of Alfred Agbeshi Woyome.
Thank you very much. I'll look at the first part of your question. Yes, I mean, you've stated the law as we all understand it, that the Supreme Court of Ghana is the final court of the land, and the decisions of all other courts on similar facts and on the law are all subject to the decision of the Supreme Court. The second part of your question relates to whether or not where there is a decision of an international court on a matter that has already been finally determined by the Supreme Court, and that international court decision is inconsistent with that of the Supreme Court, which one shall prevail? Well, my own opinion is that it looks at this moment in relation to the current situation to be a bit presumptuous, and I would have held the view that let's wait and abide the decision of the International Court tomorrow, and then we will move from the realm of presumption and realm of insinuation, and then we'll deal with the matter as they will unfold.
If you got me right, I mean, the question I'm actually asking in connection to all of this is that, is there a problem here? Is there a quandary that ought to be unraveled? Is there a legal question or a political one, as some may have put it in their own words? Is this purely legal, or is it a political question that ought to be answered somewhere or the other?
Well, the legal point that you even eloquently stated is that the Supreme Court is the final court of the land, and if the decisions are indeed final. So the question is whether the decision of an international body, whether it's an arbitral tribunal or otherwise, prevails over that of the Supreme Court if it's inconsistent. And I'm saying that I don't see any ambiguity about the matter. It's clear that the decision of the Supreme Court, the final decision of the Supreme Court, is the final decision of this country or the course of this country.
Okay, now there's also another issue that the businessman Alfred Woyome has been raising. He believes that, if you can hear me, sir.
I'm here, yes. I'm here.
Okay, wonderful. I mean, I was actually trying to make the point to you that Alfred Woyome is also contending the mode for evaluating the properties that has been put out there for sale. He insists government has deliberately, and those who did the evaluation on this blind spot because no independent grouping was set up to come and do so, are deliberately undervaluing the properties in a way to profit from it. Do you think that an independent valuer will be required under the circumstance?
Well, when parties appear before the court, they have all the freedom and independence to make applications and make submissions on matters that they disagree even with the court. And to that extent, I expect that if the gentleman has any concerns, which you have articulated, he has very competent lawyers, and I think they would have taken it up, or if it's just coming up, they will take it up if they think that matter being raised can only be resolvable by law or by a court. So I think that they know what to do. It's really something that is still within the remit of the law. Why not? I believe the lawyers know what to do. They will raise such questions so that the other side will also have the opportunity to respond. But if that is not done, and until that is done, one will have to just comply with the decision of the court.
Now, he has an allegation he's been repeating. For this time, he insists he's been unfairly treated by his own people, that is the people of this republic. He's been persecuted and not prosecuted on a matter that has been repeated consistently for a very long time. From your legal perspective, do you suspect persecution and not prosecution?
Well, that question itself, I don't see it as a legal question. But if you ask me, we all have the right to comment on decisions of the court and actions of individuals. We have the liberty to also bring actions against any person who, one way or the other, is infringing on your rights, either even in the court or out of court. And the judiciary has so far shown, fortunately for us, that they are independent. They are independent-minded, bold judges who will just determine matters before them on the basis of the fact, the law, the oath they have taken, their conscience and their belief in the Almighty God or whoever deity that they believe in. And so I think that when we have consent, it is appropriate that we go to court. There have been instances where we go to court, we win some, we lose some, as we say it. We just have to continue to believe in the sanctity of the judicial process and the judicial power of this country. And that, I think, he appreciates it and all of us appreciate it.
And before we go, I'm asking the very last question to you. This question is about the alternatives available to Mr. Alfred Woyome. Can he, staying in the remits of this country and his judicial powers, seek a judicial review of the decision that was given today?
Well, grounds, yes, of course. I mean, even at the level of the Supreme Court, even the final appellate process, you can still go beyond that for a review. The rules of and then principles of review are quite fairly and well known to every lawyer. And I think that if he instructs his lawyers, they will also give him the appropriate advice accordingly.
And I'm grateful to you for your time this evening. Lawyer Yao Pong joined us with some views on it. Well, folks, that's where we tie the nice ribbons on today's edition of Upfront. Alfred Woyome was the predominant guest on the show tonight. I hope you enjoyed it.